If you want to hear about St. Louis, tune into the Bucket List Show weekly. Hear what Marissa and Luke say. It drops every Wednesday. Got a dope new guest every single week. Buckle up for the ride. Who's it gonna be? Who's on the show today? They rep St. Louis. What to do in the loo on a late night, or maybe what to do on a date night. Yeah, Bucket List has you covered. They know what's going on. What's going on? They'll give you, hey, 18 different things to do, or 19 if you need one more to choose. Yeah, this city is a place we call home. A place we call home, yeah.
What's up, St. Louis? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the STL Bucket List Show. I'm your host, Marissa Farrell.
And I am your other host, Lucas Farrell. And we're recording this episode actually on 314 Day. So shout out to St. Louis.
Yay.
314 Day. Now, obviously, this episode comes out after, but we just want to shout out 314 Day. We got someone special in the studio today. But before we get into that, I got to shout out my guy, Matt at Half Coast Studios. Always cutting up a perfect episode for Spotify, Apple, YouTube, all the platforms. We drop every Wednesday. And then our friends over at the Regional Arts Commission of St. Louis, they're the largest public funder of arts and art programs right here in St. Louis. And if you guys haven't noticed with all the events going on this spring and summer, St. Louis is an arts town.
It is. It is.
It really is. So without further ado, we have Dave Beardsley in the studio today. Dave is on the board and one of the founders of the nonprofit Share, which I'm going to just read a little bit about Share and then we can go straight into it. So the Share mission is to promote, preserve, perpetuate, and encourage the music, culture, and heritage of Soulard and other communities in the greater St. Louis area through festivals, programs, and other cultural, educational, civic, and economic activities.
That's it.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
So Dave, we want to get right into it. Our friends over at the Regional Arts Commission filled me in a little bit about what you guys do, but we want to learn more, and especially our listeners. So if we could just learn a little bit about you first. So I know that you have a story, and if you want to kind of go into a little bit about yourself, where you're from, kind of how you grew up, where you grew up, and then kind of what led you to the world you're in now.
Sounds good. Well, I'm from St. Louis, grew up here, only left to do military time and tour the country a little bit. But other than that, I'm a St. Louis guy. I've always loved our city's music scene. As far back as I can remember, I grew up on KC radio here and Mississippi Nights and just the wealth of talent we had in St. Louis. So I consider myself really fortunate just to be from here. Yeah.
That's amazing. So you're a big music guy. So, KC, used to be huge, obviously. Mississippi Nights, was that on the riverfront there? Was that
that was in Laclede Landing downtown. Okay. It was an iconic music venue, and the management of that was an integral in the new pageant. Got with Joe Edwards over there. We have the pageant, a lot of other things going on in New City. But music endures, that's for sure.
That's amazing. Yeah, we've had Joe on the show too, and he's got a wealth of people that came through his venues as well.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Some amazing stories with that. So, if you want to go into the...
Well, I was going to say you could touch more on Share and how you got into it and the work, the value of it.
Well, Share is just a group of like-minded friends from in the music world I met that live in Soulard. They were producing the Soulard music concert series in the park, in Soulard Market Park. And I was invited to be a stage manager and help grow that event. And for the last few years of that project, got to know the team there really well. And we decided to go for a festival. It was something bigger than they'd ever done in terms of a music festival. And we, again, just everything kind of aligned like it was meant to be. And Soulard, the Share stands for Soulard Heritage Arts Revitalization Education.
Nice.
So
I was just about to ask what that stood for.
All those play a role in our mission. And the festival is our flagship event every year.
That's amazing. So, the festival you're going on, this is going to be your second year?
Second year.
As the actual festival?
As the B3 Festival, which stands for Blues, Brews, and Bites. Okay. And that's the idea behind it. You're going to go hear great music, taste food, and sample the beverages, just have a good time.
All good.
Things. So, this event's coming up May 21st, correct?
Correct.
So, obviously we're about, a couple months out, but what type of what should people expect? Because I know that there's a lot of unique and great festivals in St. Louis, and they all have their own, twang to it, if you would say. Like, so this one's going to be blues music, brews from local breweries, I imagine, and bites from great restaurants in Soulard.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
So go into a little bit more. Tell us about who's going to be there, actually, if you can.
It's Bud Light is their sponsor, our main stage sponsor. So a lot of AB products. So we're working with the South Broadway Athletic Club. They actually run our beer component of the festival. They're a great partnership for us, and we're really pleased to work with them again. We're also having an art show or an art vendor row, I guess you could call it. Or if you like art, there's going to be art for sale.
Nice.
We're doing an art contest. If you like to do live art, you can enter the contest and win prizes and bragging rights at the end
there
of
on
the day.
The spot, they would create.
It's our second year of that. Last year, our winner is now also competing again, but she's running a new event we're adding called Brushes and Blues. Janet French will give you a wooden template and the paint and the palette, and you just paint away, and it's just part of the experience. You paint while you're there. So
lovely.
Yeah, art's a big part of it.
Festivals, and in May the weather's going to be perfect. The sun's going to be out, and like people are going to be out celebrating music. So I read a little bit about the lineup. Obviously, a ton of great acts are going to be there. Right.
We were really, really fortunate with our lineup last year. We had the iconic Miss High C, who won the 2019 International Blues Challenge. First year St. Louis ever won it in the 30 plus years of this event. I was there in Memphis in the Orpheum Theater, and she tore the roof off the place. So we had to have her kick our festival off. Yeah. Her guest, Roland Johnson, was our king of soul here in St. Louis, and he has since passed. So I'm super, super glad we were able to have him there on our inaugural year. Rolling into this year, the music, there's just so many bands and only so many stage slots I have, and that's the good problem I have as a producer of this event is we have so many great bands. So this year is featuring some really, really good names. What I really love about it is we've partnered with Normandy High School this year. The Normandy Vikings marching band is going to do a small procession through the neighborhood, not a big parade or anything, but a small second line into the fest grounds, through the fest grounds to help kick things off this year. And they've learned a lot of New Orleans music curriculum for this event.
So the band from Normandy High School, they're probably stoked about it.
Oh, they are very stoked. They may even show up with some dancers to join in on the second line. And then we're encouraging the public to bring a handkerchief and be ready for it because it's going to happen.
That's so great because you're encapsulating all aspects of St. Louis and the neighborhoods. So bringing them all together.
Well, we love the heritage of Soulard, being an old French community of St. Louis, and the blues heritage that it also has is really, really deep. When I moved to Soulard in '93, from my apartment on Geyer Street, I could walk to 3 of the best blues clubs within a block of my house. I was so spoiled. I didn't know how good I had it at the time.
Until you moved, and then you're like, man, I used to have it good. What were those spots? Are they there still?
I went to Mike and Men's a lot. I went to the Great Grizzly Bear, and then just down the street was 1860s Hard Shell. So
they still pop off over there.
Yes,
they're still rolling. Yeah.
Do they still do live music at 1860s though?
Yes, they do.
Well, they have the 2 rooms. We always sit in the back when we eat. There's like those 3 rooms that they have, and
there is music 7 days a week at 1860s. And Hammerstones. Some of the Soulard venues are still killing it.
So you moved to Soulard in 1993. We were born in 1995. So tell us about, this live music. A lot of the people that I've talked to, including Joe and all these other people that have kind of been on our show or just been out and about, have said that like St. Louis's music scene, and it still is, but like there's something about it that we haven't cracked the national scene because what do you think St. Louis, like we have so many different genres.
Change over time
I always equate it to like if you're an actor here in St. Louis and you want to break out, you're going to probably move to New York or LA because that's where the industry is heavy. What St. Louis never really had, and they've had a few try it until Paul Niehaus came along and Blue Lotus Records. We didn't have a major label. So if you were Albert King living in St. Louis in the 60s, you went to Stax Records down in Memphis, or maybe you were Chuck Berry and you went to Chess Records in Chicago. So they launched the fame out of Chicago and out of Memphis. And St. Louis was always where the roots were grown and the plants were grown, and we set them off to other cities to launch fame there. But I think not having a major record label or a Berry Gordy in those days would have made all the difference.
Yeah, it's just like that one little change of if something was built, the infrastructure was.
Someone get on it. We need to get that going.
Well, now it's
here.
all independent. Everybody's independent now, it seems like.
Right.
You know, so it's a little bit different with the internet because you can kind of get out into the world a little bit differently.
Right. Well, and I mentioned Paul Lotus and Blue Lotus Recordings. If you're not familiar with him, check him out. He's done a ton of recordings of local talent, this great talent pool of St. Louis. And that's kind of his focus, is to do just that.
Paul Lotus. So, you know, I was just curious about that because, like, I think the cities like New Orleans and Memphis is like they just niche down to this certain music and that's all that they do and they just do it really well. So if you're a musician, even if you're a cover musician, you go there and you can work 7 days a week and make a living.
Well, one of our headliner this year, for example, John McVeigh, he's a Texas legend. He, if you know your blues history, he was Antone's house band in Austin, Texas, when Marcia Ball and Luann Barton and Angela Straley and these queens of Antones were rocking the charts. Mm-hmm. He was part of that scene. He moved here from Houston because he could be a working musician in St. Louis.
Really?
And he loves it. He's not leaving.
So you know, you're still here. Are you still going out to shows a lot?
Oh yeah, all the time.
So, you know, who's a regular in St. Louis that's maybe under the radar that you get to see a lot? Like, or where do you see him and like who is it? And give us a couple names to kind of help our listeners go.
Gosh, under local radar, you mean? Or
yeah,
maybe...
like, it could even be just local. That somebody that plays regularly.
Well, I like to celebrate the up and comings, like the next generation, like young rattlesnake Matt Lesh.
Okay.
When he was 15 and 16, he hooked up with Big George Brock, who's honored in the National Blues Museum. He was an 80-year-old blues man that picked up this 15-year-old guitar prodigy, and they went all over the place. Mm-hmm. They launched his career, and he's still out there performing today. Yeah. So the next generation that's keeping it alive, there's a ton of them. Yeah. It's just St. Louis is in a tough spot right now. BB's Jazz, Blues, and Soups, which was an iconic place, recently closed their doors, I think, just temporarily.
Did they? I did not know that. Yeah. We have been wanting to go there.
Yeah, but at the same time, new venues are opening. Jack's Joint opened up over McConnell's. Okay. I'm sorry, O'Connell's. Pub
in Dogtown.
Yeah, in the Dogtown area, and so it keeps just changing and evolving.
Yeah, changing. And so, if you had somebody coming into St. Louis like right now, where would you take them? Like, what's the spot? You're like, this is St. Louis.
Soulard.
Yeah.
And I'm just partial to Soulard because they are true to the blues, the clubs that still keep it alive, the history of it, and the fact we can hold our festival right next to the Soulard market just lends a lot of credibility to the roots, the St. Louis roots of blues, which go back to, the riverboat days when we had a lot of traveling musicians coming and going from St. Louis.
Yeah. So you got to take them to Soulard, of course. Yeah. So I wanted to get back on Share a little bit, the nonprofit. Sure. So, you're encouraging music, culture, and heritage in Soulard. So like, tell us how you foster that. Is it just having the event in Soulard, or is it finding the local, like, just tell us a little bit about how you foster that in Soulard.
Well, we have so many bands that don't just play Soulard, but play outside of Soulard. So while our emphasis is on Soulard, it's more on the music community as a larger group. So we're going to expand outside of Soulard. We want to do a robust blues in the schools program that can also be done. We call it the Blues Highway, and we take it into senior communities. There's a lot you can do with music. So we have much bigger plans we want to do through the year that'll employ artists, help the music economy grow, and then create the next generation of blues fans. We have to keep planting those seeds because this is an old style of music that we have. If we don't keep it alive, it fades.
And a lot of people are remixing a lot of old blues music.
Sure.
And I'm just thinking of, the Elvis movie. I mean, I don't know what you would call Elvis' style of music, but there's roots of all that. But there was hip hop artists taking some of those sounds.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
The roots. Muddy Waters saying the blues are the roots. Everything else is the fruits. I'm mixing my quotes. I think that's Willie Dixon. I think Muddy said the blues had a baby and named it rock and roll. That's Muddy Waters.
Yeah,
but it's the same thing. Yeah. It's all blues fostered most modern American music that we listen to. Yeah. If you trace the roots back and you like the Stones and you wonder who this Muddy Waters is, well, it leads you right back to that.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Because when we travel, like we like to go see live music. So when we were in Memphis, what I really loved about Memphis was like, even though Beale Street isn't as long as you would think it is, every place you walk, you could go to 6 different places and hear 6 different amazing artists all at once. And we did it. You know, we ate dinner and heard live music, and then we walked to the next place and heard live music. Same with New Orleans.
Yeah.
It's like everywhere you went in. So I think in St. Louis, I think like something that, you know, obviously with your guys' mission of what you're doing is you're making it more accessible for people. Mm-hmm. But how can the city of St. Louis, you know, like Soulard's our closest part to where you can walk around and have that. But like all these other places are so spread out, it's not accessible for people that come in town. It's like, where do I park my car or get a cab and then I can just walk around all night? Soulard.
Well, yeah, Soulard will put you within walking distance of usually on any weekend 3 or 4 music venues and numerous restaurants. So you're pretty well set. Park once and you're set.
Right. That's awesome.
Oh, sure.
So with 3B. Or B3, right?
B3.
Sorry, B3. Sorry. It's just one day.
It's one day.
Okay.
Now, our grand plan, 5-year plan is we may involve one of the other parks of Soulard and have a satellite stage and maybe a second satellite stage. Mm-hmm. But I've seen festivals grow too fast and implode. And bigger is not better. Yeah. More is not better. We love where we're at. We don't want to get too big for the neighborhood. We're very conscious of not creating another Mardi Gras to Soulard because that's kind of overwhelming, and we have to win the neighborhood. We have to be welcomed back the next year.
Family friendly.
Yeah, so it's very family friendly. And I could segue off into that, but we have a kids zone this year and planned activities for the kids. So yeah, it's going to be great.
Yeah, Soulard Mardi Gras is not a spot to bring kids, obviously, and it is too hectic. You can't even like find a bathroom.
You can barely even get down.
You can't get down there. I mean, it's a great event. It's special, but it's like you go a couple times and you're like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need to go.
Check. Bucket list. Good.
You probably wouldn't take your young ones down Bourbon Street either.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. It's an adult event, pretty much, right?
So, you know, the festivals in May, you guys want to include a lot more, events throughout the year to keep your
Yes, we already had 2 events this year in between the festival. We did the B3 blowout down at BB's. We had what I call the king of the St. Louis B3, Bob Rao. He's just a phenomenal guy to know. He's on a mission to put a refurbished B3, first of all, save the B3, refurbish it, and put it somewhere it's going to be loved. He's putting them all around St. Louis to create this B3 music community. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have a B3 last year at the B3. And we heard about it from musicians. It's like, wait a minute, you're calling it a B3 festival. I don't see a B3 Hammond organ up on that stage. So we got called on it a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm glad because it motivated me
implement it this year
to go find the king of the B3, Bob Rao, who not only is he a performer, the Bob Rao, Bennett Schaefer, and John Mondon trio will just blow everybody's mind. He's bringing that B3. It's 500 pounds. He's loading it up on our stage. He's leaving it all day. He's playing it a couple more times throughout the day, and so are the other bands. Mm-hmm. So we have a beautiful vintage B3 thanks to the... So we had to live up to it.
Yeah, it was great. And that's how you grow and evolve as an organization. I mean, this is only year 2. You guys are still figuring it out.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So a little bit more about you, though, Dave. So are you a musician or are you just a fan?
I'm a much better promoter, producer than I am a musician.
You're a fan.
And
you just appreciate the music.
I do. I try to play a little guitar, but I'm really bad at it. So I do what I'm good at, more so. I just love anything I can do. I founded stlblues.net back in 2000 and put a calendar on it to really showcase our blues music. I've always had that passion. My career here in St. Louis, in my past life, I was a firefighter paramedic for my career. So I had a lot of time off. In my downtime, I could have done a part-time job or went to school more. But I went down the path of music, and I wanted to showcase and promote. And I just ended up doing what I do by being attracted to it. Just a passion of mine. Right. And it evolved into what it did. Yeah.
That's what we always say. You got to have a passion for it or it doesn't work.
And a lot of times you just find it. You don't you're not searching. You just you just stumble upon it. And that's some of the most special things happen because promoting is really hard. There's a lot of bad promoters that aren't doing justice by the musicians.
Right.
So how did you promote back in the 90s? Like, was it flyers? Was it like just...
Yeah, it was old school.
It was just tapping,
it was
taping up
posters
flyers.
and flyers and hit the
Word of
venues. If an example I always point people to is the scene when they're promoting the big Blues Brothers concert at the end, and they're driving around and they've got kids pasting up stuff. You just do grassroots stuff, and in the most part, unless you had a big budget. Yeah. And most blues bands didn't have a lot of marketing money, so you did what you could, and that was the old school stuff. Nowadays, with social media, we're learning our way through Facebook, and now we've just added Instagram, so we're trying to use the social media that's out there.
You need some help. I know a guy.
That's what we do.
That. Yeah.
But yeah, we have been this year more interested in, using some of our resources to help people like artists and nonprofits. So like if there's anything that obviously we can do to help, whether that's photography or video, like that's stuff that we specialize in, because that's what's going to help. As sad as it is, the nobody knows about the festival unless they see it, unless they see it, and they see it after the festival, and they're like, dang, I missed that.
Wait till next year.
So any bit of like digital stuff that you can do to help, like these events that you're doing, like using these events, capturing these events, and then sharing them is going to be huge, and like helping grow that Instagram. So I hope this podcast will help drive a lot of people back.
I think it will. I really appreciate you having us on.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Drive a lot of people back here. So what's the long-term vision of Share? I know we talked about it a little bit, but I'm sure that you have like a full circle if you want to talk about that.
Well, yes. We just want to grow. I mean, the festival will grow into its own. It'll probably add a stage or two down the road, but we don't want to outgrow our footprint. It's really comfortable, friendly right now. I mean, I quit going to Jazz Fest because it was shoulder to shoulder crowded, and it just outgrew itself for me, and we don't want that to happen to Soulard.
That makes for an uncomfortable experience for the people who show up.
Right. So we want a good crowd, but we don't want too much of a good crowd. Do you know what I mean?
That.
So we're just looking for that happy balance, and it's just the word gets out organically. The people that were there last year are going to bring a friend this year, so that's how that works.
Beautiful.
That word of mouth. Word of mouth is back.
Absolutely. So yeah, music was a passion of mine throughout my whole career. I always spent my days off doing what I could. Then I launched my website, which gave me a digital platform, and that's back in the days of dial-up. So it was like painful to run and upload a website.
Yeah.
They didn't have tools.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So STLBlues.net, like, did the St. Louis Blues like, hey, that's like ours? Or like...
We were like one of the first websites to hit, I think, in St. Louis on a music level.
Because I just thought about that. I'm like,
we're
STL
dinosaur.
Blues.
Yeah.
STLBlues.net.
Yeah, you hear blues and you think hockey.
Yeah, that's funny. So the website, is that still around or no?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah. And it's got a live music calendar that's populated by a lot of bands. So we built it so you can log in and upload your shows.
Okay.
So I don't have to do it.
You don't have to do it.
That's awesome.
Hands
so if
off.
you guys are looking for music, that's where you need to go.
STLBlues.net.
Yeah.
It's free to bands and for venues to use.
Love
So
that.
Oh, it's just a free resource for people.
It is.
Nice.
Yeah, like I'm playing here, upload it, and let people.
Yeah, I think that
Exactly.
like more community organizations, and the reason we don't have something like that is it takes a lot of time and effort to build that. And then also, but you have these organizations, Explore St. Louis, they have these calendars and stuff like that. But a lot of those things you have to pay to be on.
Well, I was fortunate enough back in 2008 to come to the attention of the Blues Foundation. If you're familiar with them, they're based out of Memphis, Tennessee. Okay. They're the mothership of blues. They hold the music awards, which are the blues equivalent of the Grammys. And they're the A-list, where B.B. King will show up and hand out an award in those days. But that's the kind of caliber of an organization in the blues they are. And they called a bunch of us down to Memphis back in 2008 to the Keeping the Blues Alive Awards, and they would honor you with an award if you were behind the scenes. You're not a performer, but you're the industry. So they gave us an industry award, and it really launched us on a national level, some awareness, which really helped us. So ever since, we're not just a local site, but we try to export our music all the time.
Absolutely.
Whether it's just MP3 or a video, or it's actual booking where they're out touring. We try to do what we can.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Very supportive.
Is that what led you to the National Blues Museum, or does that kind of like...
That was an accident. Yeah. That was never, ever a thought in my mind to start a museum. I was involved in Blues Week. We launched Blues Week in 2010. It was a week-long event, hence the name. And we culminated with a big festival. We closed Chestnut in front of Soldiers Memorial, and we had a weekend festival down there. And it was amazing. It was free. It was brought in diversity to the city. It was awesome. It just so happened to be at the time they were looking to develop that MX Washington Avenue district. And some of the business owners came up to us and started a conversation. It went from within like a couple days from being a blues bar to a St. Louis museum to, well, let's just do the National Blues Museum while we're at it. And we found out nobody had done it, much to our surprise. And we decided, well, we're a music city. We have 100 plus years of blues culture. Let's plant the flag in St. Louis. Why not?
Yeah.
And we did it. A lot of cities, you'd mentioned Memphis, New Orleans. There's maybe 5 indigenous blues music cities, and St. Louis is one of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's.
We need to talk about it more. Absolutely.
Well, it's well loved.
Sure.
I mean, it's so well loved. People love the National Blues Museum. So.
Yeah. You guys did an incredible job with it too. I mean, that was a lot of work, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, and I tip my hat to Aaron Simon, now the director down there running it. Yeah. It takes a labor of love to keep it alive and make it work.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool to have your hand, like, most people might not know until this episode comes out, but you have your handprint on a lot of the stuff that's been going on. And like you said, that's that behind the scenes look of like, you're not doing it so people can see you. You're doing it to just help the city in a whole.
Keep the music here.
Right. And I prefer not to be seen. I like
well, you're about to when we post it on Instagram.
Kind of
you like doing your work, and I appreciate that. And
but
I appreciate what you're doing and keeping the music alive and, going through the generations. And
to me, it's all about the people I've met along the way. I mean, I'm just fortunate again to live in such a rich music city and call many of the musicians friends, many of the venue owners friends, because they're also doing their passion, and I can see it. They're not going to get rich playing blues music. They're not going to have roadies. It's just they do what they love. Yeah.
And be able to be a working musician. I think that, that thing that you mentioned, like people moving here, if like you can play 5 nights a week and make a living, then like you're a musician. That's a cool job.
Right. And if you're doing what you love, your quality of life is already way up there.
Yeah.
Right.
So, wow, that's awesome.
Who's your favorite blues musician?
Oh, that's an impossible question
for
me.
Yeah.
What style of blues? That's even harder. I don't know. I have a lot of them. I would have to say some of the Oliver Sane would probably be one of my heroes, a local legend. May rest in peace. I had the pleasure of meeting Oliver when he was still running Archway Studios and recording some of St. Louis's great artists. And I would sit in his studio, this old studio over on Natural Bridge, and I would just soak in the aura of and the history of his stories. And that really hooked me on lifting the lid off the history of the blues of St. Louis and then the national blues. I love the live music. I love the history of it all. So it sparked me way back then to meet Oliver Sane.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We'll have to look him up and shed some light on that. That's sweet.
He was known as the St. Louis godfather of R&B, or the man with the golden horn, depending on who you talk to.
What years did he like really have his reign usually?
Well, his biggest claim to fame was working with Fontella Bass on her big hit, Rescue Me.
Okay.
He worked a lot with Milton Campbell. He landed in St. Louis from Mississippi. He could have went on to Chicago and probably launched fame out of Chicago because they had the labels we didn't have. But he chose to stay in St. Louis and call it his home.
It's home.
Yeah, that's amazing. So speaking of St. Louis, this is the STL Bucket List show where we highlight places and people and things. So I know that you've been in St. Louis, obviously for a long, since 93 when you lived in Soulard. But if you had to name a couple of your bucket list spots around town. I mean, we've already talked about a lot of them, but like if let's say you have somebody come in town, like what are a few of your favorite restaurants to eat at? What are a few of your favorite parks, stuff like that?
Soulard, Hammerstones, then we bounce up to 1860s. That would be an evening. Restaurants, I send everybody to Rooster for breakfast.
For brunch and breakfast.
Get a crepes, the pancakes.
It's good.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
The Bailey chain here, you can't really go wrong with any of
Agreed.
those.
Definitely.
yeah, if you like Italian, I'd take you to the Hill. You know, it just depends on the person and what I think they'd like to do, you know.
Yeah.
There's a lot to offer here.
That's amazing. And then, of course, see some live music somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, Hammerstone's is 12 shows a week, I believe.
Yeah.
They're amazing. And I think 1860s is right up there with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for shedding light on the music scene that we do have here, because it's under the radar a little bit. So I think that you gave us some great options and listeners great places to go. And May 21st.
Yeah, the Soulard Blues, Brews, and Bites B3 Festival. Tell us how people can support and help. Is there ways that they can?
Just go to our website. There's a lot of information at soulardb3fest.com and the nonprofit sharesoulard.org. A lot of information about the festival. We need volunteers and we need sponsors. And if you see anything you want to do to help on a volunteer level, just fill it out on the website and we'll be back in touch.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then do you want to shout out a few maybe of the members of Share? I knew we were going to have a couple maybe come on, but if you just want to talk about your team a little bit. And, and the people that are involved.
You know, it wouldn't happen without a team. I mean, we have what we call our lanes, and we're all kind of just 100 miles an hour down our lane right now. Gail and Janet are doing our food vendors, gathering our food and our nonprofit art vendors together and collectively placing them. Larry Wineless is our site manager. He's going to help make sure all the parts are working that day. He's very dedicated.
That's a big job.
It is a big job. And it's all volunteer driven. Everyone involved. Let's see. Shout outs to Chris Schwartz. He's our board chairman. Without him and his wife, Vanessa, we wouldn't have the festival going. We wouldn't have a kids zone, thanks to Vanessa. There's a team, Jason Paul over at Hammerstones, just the Soulard neighborhood in general. Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, we'll drop more information. We'll be posting this on Instagram. We'll be sharing it on the website. And then if you guys listen to the full episode, definitely leave a review on the episode. And see you guys next Wednesday. Got to shout out, obviously, Half Coast in the back, always producing a perfect episode so that we can put these out every single week, along with our friends at Four Hands, and of course the Regional Arts Commission of St. Louis. Jay, Vanessa, the entire team there for believing in our show. And obviously sending us Dave.
People,
so shout out Dave, guys. Dave's footprint has been huge on St. Louis and obviously the blues culture. And it's nice to learn a little bit about it. Cause like I said, we didn't grow up in that. So it's nice for us as people in their 20s to be able to keep that going, because there's no other way we would unless there was festivals like what you all are doing.
Next time you're in Memphis, just go another hour or so south, Highway 61, the Blues Highway, to Clarksdale, and spend a day or two in Clarksdale.
Okay.
Just soak it up.
Okay.
Yeah, we went to the first restaurant. What was the restaurant we went to? It was the famous, was it BB King's? Yeah.
And on Beale Street?
Yeah. So it's right on the edge. They dropped you off, BB King's, and then we walked. We obviously got the frozen slushies.
Sure.
But then we just went into this one random bar. It was really small, and it was like some of the best music. And we were just jamming out. We couldn't even sit down. And then we went all the way down to Coyote Ugly, and you danced on the table. So
Sure did.
Did you pop into Rum Boogie? It's like right before you cross to go to Hard Rock or the Coyote.
we probably, maybe, I don't know.
It has all the
everywhere.
guitars hanging from the ceiling.
Oh, I don't know. I
Peeked
don't
in,
think so.
it's like hundreds of guitars.
Called Rum Boogie. Yeah.
Called the Rum Boogie. It's
We'll
a
be
great
back.
music.
We'll make
Yeah,
our way
we got to
back.
go back there. We were talking about a trip of where we were going to go next, and those are the type of trips we like to do. Is like not huge cities, but small cities, then live music, where you can just walk around and explore. Like we like to bounce. You don't want to have to pick a place and be there all night if you don't want to. You don't have to. You know, or pay a huge cover charge to get in somewhere. So. But yeah, we'll do that. We'll be promoting the festival, and we'll definitely be there. That sounds like right up our alley. So that'll be a fun go.
Sounds good. I'll be there all day.
All right, Dave. Appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Today they rep St. Louis, yeah. They rep St. Louis. They rep St. Louis.